You are listening to the audio portion of the QB Power Hour webinar series, your biweekly dose of insights and learning for accounting professionals with co-host Dan DeLong and Matthew Spot Fulton. We're here to explore the latest in the industry, QuickBooks, and integrations that matter to you. For more details on the series, visit qbpowerhour.com.
Well, welcome to another QB Power Hour. I was noticing in the chat that Kathy Grosskirk skipped Toastmasters to come to the QB Power Hour today. So I am deeply honored that I where I rank in the Toastmaster.
Dan, hey, I'm co-hosting. It could be me. Come on, Kathy, let us know.
That's very true. Right. So if you're here for Sharrin, type 1 in the chat. If you're here for me,
I don't want that survey. I don't want that survey. Come on.
You don't want that instant feedback?
No, Dan.
Well, today is a real hot topic. If you've been on the QB Power User Facebook group or the other Facebook groups for accounting professionals, you've no doubt been seeing some issues with the Intuit login. And good news is there's actually been an update from Intuit to finally close some of the vulnerabilities that we've been screaming about. I guess that's just the easiest thing to say. But
they've been listening.
They have been listening. Sometimes it takes a little losing of the voice in order for that to happen, but I'm pleased to report that there is some changes, and we'll talk about that. And then there's also some other things that you can do as an accounting professional to help secure your account as well as your client. So we'll be talking about that. So today, my name is Dan DeLong, owner at Dan With and School of Bookkeeping, worked at Intuit for nearly 18 years, co-hosting today, also the workshop Wednesdays, oddly enough, on Wednesdays over at School of Bookkeeping. And Sharrin, joining us, filling in again for Spot.
Hello.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I just came back from an 11-day vacation, and through the last 3 days of it, I've been sick. So I'm joining you guys today with hot flashes, cold flashes, and body aches. Basically, I am menopause with Mucinex right now. So happy to be here. And I actually have my link ready for my Clone and Conquer Hub this time, you guys. And
okay, good.
Watch my socials because I got a really exciting thing coming up that I'm pretty excited, which we've kind of sort of announced, but
yeah. Well, we appreciate you. You're such a trooper at being, because I hate doing this stuff alone. So I really appreciate you being here, even when you're not feeling 100%. So thank you.
Of course.
So again, the Insightful Accountant nominations are open. There's a link there in the handouts, which I forgot to put in the chat. Now that I'm reminded. So I will quickly do that. If you're watching on the socials, there's a QR code, and it looks like a couple people have already done that. But let me just throw this in here.
They did it a little bit different this year, and I wanted to, I had a talk with Gary, and I think they did it different because I think a lot of people assume that this was Intuit's ProAdvisor, and it's not. It's Insightful Accountants. Intuit, of course, is supportive of it. So I think this year they made some changes to make it very obvious that it is the Insightful Accountant top ProAdvisor. And I love that they added in some of the things they did. So how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, this is definitely something that is not Intuit. I mean, they have their own they have the same problem as Intuit as branding. They never quite understand who makes.
I think it's the ProAdvisor thing that confuses people, but because I said the same thing. I sent it to Gary, and Gary goes, I'm Sharrin, this is Insightful Accountant. And I go, cool, good to know. I'm going to go switch some social media there because for some reason I was thinking it was like but no. Anyhow, I'm excited that they have some more up-to-date topic
categories. It'll turn into the Oscars by the time.
Best only we care about, right?
Best supporting ProAdvisor, best.
No one wants to watch. We all just sit there and pat ourselves on the back. It's amazing.
So if you're just joining us for the first time, a little bit about the QB Power Hour webinar series. It is the longest running series of QuickBooks stuff that is not sponsored by Intuit. We do have, it's every other Tuesday at noon Eastern, and we do have a CPE credit through Earmark. But you can always go to qbpowerhour.com/resources to find the handouts of all of our webinars, past recordings, podcasts, and other resources as well. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. There is a new invitation process inside of QBO Accountant, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And that may play into what we're talking about with securing your Intuit login. So we'll talk about what has been happening with some logins being compromised, and talk about the Intuit password reset vulnerability that we've been chatting about, and then some steps to take to protect your login, as well as minimizing any damage that might occur. And then Intuit, as mentioned, did make some changes already in that vulnerability aspect, and so plugging up the loopholes. And I was talking about it with Rachel on the workshop, Sharrin. It's very like these types of things, especially when there are bad actors out there exploiting these vulnerabilities. It's very similar to TSA, right? When you travel, right? Like, oh, we can't bring a quart size, larger than a quart size bag of liquids, or we got to take our shoes off.
Oh, they can't make up their mind over there.
Thank goodness we didn't have to take our underwear off when the underwear bomber came out, right? But those steps were always reactionary. There's so many things to respond to. It's really hard to plug up everything. But being that that most of Intuit's services contain PII, personally identifiable information, and sensitive information, it is very paramount that security is a main concern. So let's talk about the first polling question. What version of QuickBooks do you currently serve with your clients? Sharrin, do you have that handy?
I have no questions open for me here. I have no questions.
Hold on. Let's see here. There we go. Launch. I'll do it.
Okay.
I got it.
Yeah, I have none.
I don't know where it went there, but problems with the
I
live.
had the wrong thing open. I'm sorry. You guys, I'm still recovering from a NyQuil coma. I'm sorry.
Here we go. So while you guys are answering that, let's just go ahead and kick into the Intuit news, which is all about a firm invitation. So you probably haven't seen it because you don't invite yourself. Maybe you have. And we'll talk a little bit about this. So what happened is, and you have probably experienced one or more of the challenges with getting an accountant invitation to QuickBooks Online from a client, right? So the old process, it relied on email, right? So somebody had to go in, invite you, put your contact information, and they've tried to make it easy in the past where you could just click on accountant and invite your first accountant by just an email. But that relied on the email being received, and that also relied on them typing in your email properly, right? So it's riddled with issues. Sometimes you never received it. There could be a typo in the email. It could be the wrong email. I know that some people have a preferred email for invitations, but then email communications go back and forth, and they just copy the email that you're communicating with, and then it could be filtered out, right? And then, of course, the process of accepting is clicking the link that's in it. You could be logged in already in a different login or a different browser, and then there's cache and cookies that deal with it. And all you get is, that didn't work. So there's a lot of challenges that come along with those invitation processes. So now, when you go in to add a new accounting firm inside of QBO for a client, there is this new option that says invite my accountant's firm. with a little help bubble to give them an understanding as to what it is. Now, even though this is super simple, all they have to do is put in the firm ID, which is your QBOA company ID for QuickBooks, right? So you can just press the keyboard shortcut of Control Alt and the question mark key, or Control Option if you're on a Mac, and provide that to them. You can copy it, just send it in an email or what have you. It's like all you got to do is just put in this number. And then there's no email that gets sent. You go into your client list, right? So in your client list, you'll see client invitations inside of QBOA, and it'll just be there. And then all you have to do is just click the action drop down and accept it. And now that client is in your firm. So
Dan,
yep.
I'm sorry. I know I interrupt you, but I think we talked about how I need to do this on the back end because you can see me.
Right.
So are we able to do it the old way, or is it only this new way? Because, we all are a little weary of trusting Intuit's new product. So I personally would still keep saying, please invite my firm at QBO and we'll deal with all the rest of it in 2 years when I stop seeing people complain. Or is it they're just like, nope, here it is. And I'll pay $5 more a month. No.
Yeah, this is...
Sorry, guys, I'm not snarky.
No, this is it's a good question. There still is the old way, right? You can see on the screen. I don't know.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was like that, but it won't send the email anymore. It doesn't send the email says, you've been invited. Now click here. It
will still send a confirmation email saying that you have been invited, but there isn't too many there is an action that's required to be taken from the email. It's more of a confirmation that you have been invited.
Got you.
And you stopped sharing
oh my God, I'm so sorry. I give up.
No, that's okay.
It was a lot. It was both. It was the same as Dan, same as it is every week. 60% both.
Although only 1% are desktop only. So that is getting smaller.
I'm curious, it's a whole other topic, but the 1%, are they getting ready to retire? Because I'd be like, anyhow. Sorry.
And we are going to have the state of desktop after Intuit Connect. So our first QBA Power Hour after Intuit Connect, we're going to have Marjorie Adams from 4Lane to come on to talk about the state of affairs of QuickBooks Desktop. She's a very heavy desktop user, enterprise for a lot of her clients. So we're going to talk about that.
Can I tell you real quick? My ADHD's all over today. Do you want to tell me something that drives me nuts about the Intuit process here is that people can invite us, but we can't remove ourselves. So I have clients from decades ago that I still get their stupid QuickBooks notices because I cannot remove myself. And I email them and they're like, oh, so when I go to my QuickBook companies, they're in there. I'm like, I don't care. I hide them or whatever, but remove me. I don't want anything to do with your company anymore.
Yeah. Well, there is a way to permanently disconnect. But you have to do the primary ad. Yeah. It's been for a while.
Just the firm.
But it's a severing, right? So if you were associated with the client and more problematic, I guess, is if you were getting the payroll notifications and things like that. They will still continue to happen even after that severing.
Is it a little bit soothing when it was a terrible client and you kind of let them go and they didn't remove you and you're seeing all their checks bounce? Do you feel a little bit, come on, accountants, there's a little bit of happiness and warm and fuzzy there.
Yeah, it's, Okay, so let's talk about the topic of the day was really securing your Intuit login. Let's set the stage on what has been happening, right? So I don't know why every image when I tried to do a search for hackers, it's always these faceless people in a hoodie for some reason. But what was happening is that login
uniform.
Exactly, that's the uniform of a hacker. There's a hoodie with no face. So logins have been compromised, and it's very paramount for accountants in this case, because they are the tip of the iceberg when it comes to if your login that is associated with your QBOA is compromised, that provides a gateway to all of your clients, right? So if your login happens to be compromised, then they have access to all of those clients. And now that there is a lot of services attached to QuickBooks Online that is real money movement, that is concerning, right? Because someone who doesn't have the scruples that you do, being able to access your clients and initiate real money movement, that is a concern, right? Because bad actors use that to provide access to clients and leverage those money movement services. And this example of, I'm going to butcher her name and I apologize, Ufuoma, friend, talked to her several times at conferences. Her login was compromised, and she has a post on her Facebook group detailing the horror story that occurred. Now, she had a backup admin account, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So she was able to sign in and access those clients in real time the whole day. She was combating the bad actor, right? So she would see what would happen. They would add a user, and she would go in and delete said user. And so it was just the Dutch boy, trying to put the fingers in the dike and stop the water. Meanwhile, at the same time, she's trying to correct the issue by contacting Intuit, stop this from happening. And as she mentions in her post, she did 5 case tickets, submitted her information 11 times to be able to prove her identity so it would stop happening. And the turnaround time and the answer was, we'll get this resolved in about 5 days. That's not a great experience, for sure. But she had MFA and 2FA enabled. She practiced, password, standard operating procedure. She had unused passwords, right? So she saw, before she was, officially kicked out of her own firm, at least 5 clients that were accessed and money movement occurred. Fortunately, she's a great person, had a great relationship with her clients, and they were very gracious while this was getting sorted out. A lot of people say, well, isn't 2FA or, strong passwords or passkeys, supposed to mitigate that? Standard login security is really not enough, because the password reset process bypasses all of those security measures, right? If it really doesn't matter if you have a passkey, which is something stored on your device itself, right? Because if they are able to find a way to reset your password with your login, then all bets are off, because it doesn't matter if you've got a code being sent to you. If they can update the contact information of where those codes are actually sent after a password reset is done, then of course, that's how these things happen. And hopefully they're not watching to get some
Let
ideas.
us teach you.
Right.
This is how not to let people have in your account.
Now you have, Sharrin, we were talking a little bit about this, that you have a process or operating procedure in place where you basically require your team members to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm a
you
Fruit
can't,
Loop over here.
you still can't enforce it unless,
No.
you can't see it happening, even if they have multi-factor authentication turned on.
Yeah, I just saw that in chat too. the one thing that really, so I is required, like we use Rick Lane. So there's an agent that oversees the computer. So I'm like, you will do the updates, you will do all the things. And I want to be able to, if you call me and go, someone stole my laptop, I want to shut it down in Apple. I want to shut it down in 15 places. So I'm a little crazy about MFA, but in Intuit, I was hoping there was an update this morning. I can go in and see who has two-factor turned on, but I cannot require it or force it. I can kick them off of my books or off of my team if they don't. But I mean, what a pain in the rear to log in every couple of weeks and just look to make sure that nobody shut it off because they're inconvenienced, right?
And someone was asking in the chat, how do they get these passwords, right? So, the dark web is a real thing, right? And, sometimes, you see every day, that there has been a breach of some sort somewhere, right? And of course, these passwords are available to the highest bidder. But if you're resetting or changing your password and using some kind of password vault to store those strong passwords that are automatically generated, those types of things, of course,
that's the number one key there, though, right? Like, so the number one key, everybody, and I'm cutting you off again, Dan, but we're okay now.
Fine.
We do this. If you are saving your password in a spreadsheet, if it's your dog's name, your high school mascot, I'm going to drive to your house and smack you with my thing. Everybody
what was
here, it's my wrist rest.
Oh,
because I'm ergonomically correct. It's the only thing correct about me. One pass, last pass. If you have that set up correctly for you and your firm, it'll tell you, hey, this has not been changed in 30 days. Hey, this is not strong enough. Hey, there has been a breach of this password, and you can create requirements. So your number one priority here above QuickBooks is making sure your firm is set up correctly at the top. And I am crazy about that. Like, my team knows better. They know and knock on wood, we've had no issues with any of this.
So somebody asked, how are these bad actors compromising their login? So the weakest link, right? The game show, right? The weakest link of all of this is there was a vulnerability, and I'm saying was in past tense because Intuit has finally, taken some steps to close that vulnerability, which we certainly appreciate with this. But they were with minimal information, and I'll demonstrate. Well, I won't demonstrate, but I'll show, what actually they could happen prior to what occurred. But with minimal information, a forged ID, I mean, it's since the 50s, fake IDs have been a thing, right? Before it was just to get beer, but now there's other things that these bad actors can do. But with the minimal information and a forged ID, they could basically update the email address on your login. And part of the process of updating your email address was Intuit would send them a password reset to that new email, right? So now that's it. That's all they needed, right? So now they can intercept those MFA codes. They can change where those codes are actually going. They can update contact information by putting in their phone number to get the MFA codes. They can reset the password, which now locks you out of your own login, and then have access to all of those clients, right? So how were they able to do that, right? So the password reset process on QuickBooks' article of, fill out this form is all they had to do. What are you trying to do? Right? Let's get you back into your account. There's email. There's three choices in that drop down. There's email, phone, or email and phone. But all they would need to do is just choose the email. All they need is your current user ID, which a lot of people use their email as a user ID. Then the current email, which is, well, they have that too, right? Then just what is the new email and confirm that new email. The next thing they need is a government ID at that point, which could be a driver's license, passport, state ID, or some notarized document, which could all be effectively forged. So great. So now with all of that information, they could change that. But now Intuit has closed that vulnerability because they have now added facial recognition selfie. And it's not just the same thing as a selfie pointing your finger, right? It's if you've ever done and set up an account at id.me with the IRS, they make you, go through this process, and you have to look in all sorts of different directions in order for every nook and cranny of your face to be scanned and recognized. But that puts an additional layer of friction with this entire process. So in addition to the government ID, they have to go through this facial recognition. So now there's points of comparison to, is this the same as, and they can compare where this information was taken from. So it's really hard to do that, right? To forge that information, because that's just it's not just a picture. So kudos to Intuit for finally getting this process started to plug that up. What took you so long?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how are they getting the email address? So a lot of times scams are interconnected, right? If you've ever seen or gotten an email from someone saying, "Hey, I want you to charge my credit card," or I can't accept credit cards,
I got 5 last week. 5. I'm not even joking. It was the craziest thing. I'm like, get out of here. Sorry.
But yes, it's an elaborate multi-step data mining, right? About the end of last year, there was a rash of people posting on our Facebook group of like, I got this, somebody reached out to me on the ProAdvisor profile, and here's one of mine, right? My name is so-and-so. I'm the owner of this construction company, and I want to hire you to train my team, right? And they offer some exorbitant fee for doing that, or there was a lot of casting directors for some reason that were reaching out to ProAdvisors wanting to train. I don't know why casting directors have a need for QuickBooks Online training, but that was the setup. And then what you do is you reply to these things, and that goes back into your ProAdvisor portal so that you can see the lead and the reply. But what really happens is they get sent an email from your ProAdvisor email address, right? So they now have that information, right? So that is now one of those things. So those things that seemed harmless at the time are now part of it, potentially part of this whole, sting operation, right? So it wasn't necessarily, if you've ever watched the movie The Sting, and, since Robert Redford passed away, it's readily available. It wasn't just Robert Redford and Paul Newman as part of this operation. It was, many, many people, right? So their coordinated effort to be able to mine this data to get this information and exploit the vulnerability that was there, right? So there are ways, right, of course, to identify those fishermen. Things to look for in emails that you get or correspondence. The from address is typically the first giveaway. Does the from address end in Intuit.com, right? And is Intuit.com spelled correctly, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to say capital L or capital I, lowercase l, right? They sometimes look the same. and they could forge things that way. So it's very sometimes it's real easy to miss, I guess is the best way to look for the requested action that they're wanting you to take in said email, right? Don't click the link. I don't know why I said click link in there, but
never click the link and do not reply.
That's what I
Whenever
want
I
to
see
say.
something like that, whenever I see something like that, I always I get a lot from Coinbase, like crypto. Somebody's trying to log in, but this isn't. I go directly to Coinbase, directly to that chat, that email, and go, hey, I just got this email. They're like, nope, no. So just don't reply. Don't click. Watch some scammer things. If you click on things, that is how they get access to your computer, and they dive right in. Like, I spent the last 3 days just watching all those videos.
Yeah. And, somebody was mentioning that there was an email scam that was posted in the Facebook group where they actually did have at intuit.com as the from address. What I would probably look at is the O in .com, right? So is that a 0 or something like that, that.
Well, not only that, they don't always want you to reply to the email. Sometimes they do just want you to click on the link. So they don't care if they spoof that email or not. They're just like, just click that little link. We just need access.
And often you want to.
I'm not passionate about this.
You want to look for typos. Sometimes they're easy to spot, and it's sometimes it's what's the word I'm looking for is sometimes you get insulted, like, oh my God, who would fall for this, right? But that's actually who they're looking for is people who would overlook a blatant typo or something like that, or bad grammar or things like that, right? Like, because if you are the type of person who would overlook that and still act on an email, that's the kind of person that they're looking. But you can check out this article, 4 ways to tell if it's a scam, and then also looking at the Intuit security site for previous security identifications, right? So what kind of damage? Go ahead.
I have 3 QuickBooks Online IDs, and as I was trying to get a screenshot for everybody, I realized one of them doesn't have MFA on, so I'm doing it right now.
You're wagging the finger at yourself.
I never get in that one, but anyhow.
Yeah, and if you download the handouts, all the links are there. They're also on our landing page as well for this webinar. But what kind of damage can they do? The potential impact is really compounded by Intuit services, right? The QuickBooks Business Network, QuickBooks Payments, instant access to funds, the QuickBooks Bill Pay. Somebody mentioned in the chat, yes, and we talked about that QuickBooks Bill Pay Basic is half already enabled. They just have to go in and finish the setup, which once they're logged in as they are an admin, right, to the company, right? Every accountant user is an admin, unless they're in as a firm user, for a teammate, right? But as the primary admin of your firm, as well as the main firm accountant, the lead accountant, that's the word I was looking for. The lead accountant can enable services, and that's, again, they're leveraging your login to be able to do that. Of course, then there's payroll and contractor payments. All of those lead to real money movement that can potentially be siphoned from your client's bank account. And if they know what they're doing and they set things up properly, they could send an invoice or a bill from one company, one of your clients, to another one, and instantly have access to the funds by them paying the invoice themselves. Okay, so
I can do it. I can do it. Here we go.
Okay, perfect.
Yay!
Have you ever had an issue with identity theft? I mean,
my God.
I had my login compromised we don't know how. This was not my QuickBooks login. This was my banking login with Capital One. Somewhere, and they're assuming that I logged in to my banking app, like at a Starbucks or an unsecured Wi-Fi, where somebody scraped my keyboard shortcut, right, or my keyboard keystrokes. There we go. I don't stroke the keyboard. They're keystrokes, and because my wife's login was fine, right? So it wasn't done. But what happened was they changed the email for my login to themselves, and in order to distract me, they sent me 2,000 spam emails at the same time. They robo signed me up for all sorts of communities that I never signed up for. So while I was concerned about what the heck am I doing with all these 2,000 emails that just showed up at one time, they were in my account sending themselves $999 payments. But inside that blast of emails was buried an email. Hey, we've updated your email address. So I couldn't see. I was not
sneaky.
Yes, I didn't understand. I was completely totally distracted.
Michael raised his hands and I meant to message him and said I allowed him to talk. I am of zero help today. I'm just a spaz. I'm sorry. My ex used to steal my credit for years. I actually had to put a credit block. He would go get all those stupid little payday loans in my name.
Oh my God.
That's even worse when you know where it's coming from and you can't do anything about it. I still to this day have to lock down my credit all the time. Just so everybody knows.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
He's coming after my solid 425. Just kidding.
There we go. All right. So let's talk about some steps that you can take to protect you and your clients and mitigate any damage, right? So steps that put friction between you and the bad actors, right? So password best practices, changing your password. When we were talking about this on the workshop, somebody said, when the clocks change all of your passwords, right? So it's just one of those routines to put yourself in, right? So adding that the 2FA, MFA, which there's a difference between the two. And I think I talk a little bit about that in a second here. Authenticator apps, having a second app that gives you those codes is, again, nothing is foolproof because fools are so ingenious, but they keeps the honest people honest, and those, somebody who wants to break into your car will still find a way to break in your car even if you lock the door, but you can definitely make it harder for them, right? Put the club, those types of things. But
my mom had one of those because her car kept getting stolen.
Right. Making a user ID as opposed to your email address, masking your email address so that it's not, so the contact email address for your login is not your real login or your real email address, having a backup admin account, and then limited access for new customers, and then disabling unused services. So password best practices, of course, strong passwords, unique, changing them frequently, using some kind of password vault, and not sticky notes attached to your monitors or Excel spreadsheets or, things that aren't necessarily secure. MFA, 2FA, and the authenticator apps, right? That's that 6-digit code that's going to be sent to presumably you, the contact information that's on the account. Now, MFA is mandatory, right? So it's not something that you can opt into. This is something that Intuit has when there is a new or unrecognized login. Like I get MFAs all the time because I'm never in the same place twice for much long, right? For very long. whether I have 2FA, which is an optional setting on your account, enabled or not, if I'm in a new location, a new browser, a new computer, a new whatever, I'm going to get an MFA code regardless of the setting that I might have, right? So 2FA is a two-step process that you enable on your account that will always send that 6-digit code regardless of whether it's a new login or not. And then Authenticator Apps is just a completely separate app that provides the code. Now, you don't get those codes until you enter in the password. So again, you're going to have those other options, but if your password has been reset, then you'll never get the code because you won't be able to sign it. Right? Then there's this relatively new thing called a passkey, which is a locally
Slightly annoying. They're slightly annoying. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, especially if you're doing it off of different computers and that doesn't have the passkey stored on it. But it's a locally stored file. So something on your machine that stores the file and then authenticates that with the login server. This is very similar. I think the best way to describe it is it's like war games, right? They need 2 different keys and 2 different people to insert the keys and turn at the same time. So that the redundancy of that is very hard to mimic. And what this also does is it avoids passwords and MFA codes, right? So you don't have to deal with those, but you have to be on the device or have the device accessible that has that passkey stored on it. All right. Using an email or using a user ID that is not your email, right? So keeps people guessing, especially when you have a user ID that's not your email. It's not readily available. The challenge, though, is that it must be unique, right? So just like your email is unique to you, that makes it real simple to create a user ID that's an email address because it's already something that is presumably unique to yourself, right? So if you go into accounts.intuit.com and update your user ID, just keep in mind that you have to pick something that is unique to you. And then that might not make sense, when you start adding numbers and letters and some iterations of that. So that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking of what your user ID should be. Now, we want to appreciate Rachel Barnett from Gentle Frog for identifying a great workflow that you can mask your email addresses so that they're not readily available, even if they have even if they have access to your account and they can see what your contact email address is, that is not your real email address. So you're putting a buffer between your real email address and the login contact information. So best practices here. You don't want to use an email address that is externally available. So don't put it on your website or things like that to show that email address. And then you can create, typically with Google Workspace or Outlook accounts, you can create email aliases, things that auto forward to your root email address. So I want to go in here and kind of.
That's what we do, but I don't want to say what we do because if the hackers are listening, they're going to know. You kind of know what we do.
So this article on School of Bookkeeping, you can actually listen to it if you want to. Too long, don't read. You can listen to it then. But this walks through this process, and I have a scribe embedded in here to creating email aliases in Google Workspace. So you can kind of walk through that I tried to block out anything personally identifiable in mine, but typically you go into the admin console, and I also did put a link to how do you do this in Outlook as well. But the general idea is you want to create a never used backup admin with some email address. You set your operational primary as an alias that's different from your real email address.
Oh, so many cartwheels. Isn't it insane? Intuit can just make us not have to do all of this, but keep going.
And then adding a proposal only user that has minimal access, right? So there's essentially 3 users. One, a backdoor for you to be able to log in should your normal login become compromised or if you get locked out, right? I saw a situation where a legitimate ProAdvisor was living overseas, and they got logged out or locked out of their account because Intuit noticed there was several attempts to sign in outside of the United States, right? So that was a security concern, and then they had to prove who they were in order to get in. So with having a secret entrance into your firm, you can still continue to do your work while while that while that is being worked on, right? Because there is.
I use a VPN for everything, so mine can never keep up with where we're sharing out today.
Exactly.
Today we're going to be in Dallas. Tomorrow we're going to be in LA. I'm all over the place, so I'm always having to put in my 2-factor. I don't even think the government doesn't even know where I live at this point in time.
Exactly. So then you have this quotes only, and then your intake for new clients is the client invites the quotes only user, and then you go in right after you accept it, and then move it to your super secret login. But you could also use this firm ID process to do that as well, right? So there is no email that user that accepts it. To create those aliases, you log into the admin, you browse to the user profiles that you have in your account, you edit yourself, and then there's an option here called add additional emails, right? And then here's where you can create any number. I think the maximum you can do at Google is 30 that you can preset. You can always add a plus sign and a number or something after the plus sign to auto forward that. And it is a unique email address, but you got to keep track of all of those. So might as well document that in your admin console here. But you're creating 3 aliases. One's a super secret, one's a not telling, and then one is for quotes. And then at that point, you're going to invite the backup email as well as the quotes as a user, right? Inside of your firm, the quotes only would be standard, no access, right? So they don't have access to your firm books, which protects you from being, if that login happens to be compromised, they won't have access to your books. And more importantly, they won't have access to any of your clients either, because you're going in and removing their client access after you've done that. Right? And then, so you would then send the invite. You're going to add another user. This is the backup admin user, and they're going to be a company admin of the firm. That is just, you're never going to use this backup unless you need to, right? So having other team members do this as well is also an option. Also down below here, I have implementation for the multi-staff firm. So you can create different aliases for that process if you wanted to, or you could continue to leverage this one as well. All right, so you're going to receive 2 invitations in the main inbox. but you're going to accept each one and create a login, create an Intuit login under those email addresses that each one is assigned to. So now your email address is safely masked because it's now the super secret or not telling name of the email address. So correspondences are going to be sent to that, but you'll still receive them because you'll still get them because they are the way email aliases work is they auto forward to the main email address as well. And then you want to manage your Intuit account at that point. Go in. If you see, hey, a new user ID might help, there may be an alert at the top. If not, then just clicking on this sign in and security section here, and then you'll be able to modify the user ID. You just have to choose something that's unique and confirm it. And then it gets saved. You get emails along the way every time that you make a change. And then you do the same thing for your email address. You would go in, update it to the new alias email. And that way your login email address, your particular email address is not exposed. And we walk through that, and then you always have to, communicate all of that and confirm when you're making changes like this. So you'll get an MFA code for that. And then you also get an email address an email along the way saying that these changes have taken place. So this is all here, as well as more information about that. So you can check that out. So those additional users, so you got the limited access for invitations, the backup admin user, and the auto forwarding web-based email. If you are on an Exchange server, I don't know the process. So check with your IT guy if that's possible to create those auto forwarding emails like that. And then once that infrastructure has taken place, then you're able to just make those changes add into it. So damage control, right? So here's the challenges, right? And things that you want to do is with QuickBooks Payments, close unused accounts, right? So because you are an admin to all of your clients, and QuickBooks Payments is kind of half set up for accounts, it only takes someone to finish setting them up to start the actual real money movement. But if they're not using QuickBooks Payments, you can go in and close those accounts. If they don't have a dire need for instant deposits, you can opt out of that option. Now, you can get access to instant deposits for a fee, but if you're using the QuickBooks checking, you can avoid the fee by doing that. The QuickBooks Business Network, you can opt out if that's not necessary or needed. And then the QuickBooks Bill Pay, if they're on QuickBooks Online Advanced, you can set up workflows that you get notified when a bill is created and those types of things, so that you're aware that something might be happening here. So with QuickBooks Payments, the instant deposits is a 1% fee unless they're using QuickBooks Checking. All new accounts are partially enabled, so you can close those accounts if they're not being used, and there's a link to being able to do that here in the slides. The Business Network. It's a nice, convenient feature, but this is potentially a vulnerability that people are exploiting, right? Because it keeps your contact info up to date. There is an invitation process to connect between QBO subscriptions, but if they have the logins on both companies to be able to do that, then they can do that. But the convenience factor is invoices sent from one company are turned automatically into bills by another company, which if now you're accessing the money movement process of QuickBooks payments and QuickBooks bill pay, that just allows people to streamline that process of fraud by doing that, right? So they can opt out of the account under settings. Of course, it doesn't stop someone from opting back in, right? So if they're logging in as you, they can opt back in. But again, putting up those obstacles to make things a little harder for people to do. QuickBooks Bill Pay, again, nice, convenient features. You can't turn off QuickBooks Bill Pay because they're automatically half enabled for the basic service, right? So you can't even not have the basic service because it's already there. So maybe a best practice is keeping money movement outside of QuickBooks, right? Using different outside services. I'm sorry to be saying this about Intuit services, but because you do lose those integration conveniences, but it's really inconvenient if something were to happen like this. You only have to go and ask Ufuomo how inconvenient this was for her. Okay, so wow, we timed that right. Sharrin, any thoughts, comments, concerns?
Always. I've always got thoughts, opinions. It's just crazy. Somebody mentioned earlier, and they're right. Like, I don't think I started noticing the hacking and the issues until QuickBooks really started launching their bill pay function. So I feel, and like people are saying, that's the hardest part. People log in and they process the bill pay and there's no way around it. Then QuickBooks logs you out and it's insane to me. But I am, you saw me tagging you in everything over the weekend. All of those. Yeah. I'm like, damn. Yeah. I don't use anything. I use QuickBooks as my GL. I don't use any other pieces of it whatsoever because I don't feel secure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I don't want my clients.
when I was working there, I mean, that was back when QuickBooks payments and payroll was it. So the actual sending of money, initiating where the QuickBooks world and the real world actually intersect with money being sent. They started with, their partnership with Bill, and then they moved to Melio, and now the QuickBooks Bill Pay. The movement of money out of the business, I think, is where things really came to light for this sort of thing, simply because. And then the instant payment and in this instant access to that fund, because now you have, or these bad actors have access to both sides, potentially sending invoices to your other clients and then paying them because they've now compromised, this whole thing. So this is very elaborate. And it's very important, I think, for folks to make sure that they're doing their best, their due diligence to make sure that their login is as secure as possible. And we appreciate Rachel and Ufuomo for being vulnerable enough to let us know their experience so that others can benefit from their trailblazing of this process. So we appreciate you all joining us here today on the Power Hour. And next time, so we were supposed to have tech saving tips, workflows and apps that help accountants save time. But we felt it was more topical and important to talk about this very important topic today. But so next time on the Power Hour, Sharrin and I are going to be, you got to launch the last poll question.
Yes. I didn't have anything that told me to. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Should have done that. So I appreciate you joining us here today. And next time we'll be talking about some tech that saves accountants time and workflows that streamline your process and get you out of busy work, doing things that actually bring greater value to you and your clients. So we will see you next time on the Power Hour, and hopefully everybody has a great day. And Sharrin, I hope you feel better real soon.
Hey, I'm going to go get high on some NyQuil right now, or some DayQuil. So we're good.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the QB Power Hour podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in our Facebook group. You can find those resources and much more at qbpowerhour.com.